Hello and welcome back to Lewis the Woodworker. In the last episode, I showed you how I approached making the foundations for the new workshop. In today's episode, I'm going to show you how I framed and insulated the base. I started by cutting all the timbers needed to build the frame using my miter saw. I first made a square box and then filled it in with joists. To make some of the timbers long enough for my workshop, I had to extend them by using two blocks, having one smaller block connecting two larger bits. That would keep it all aligned. I used a combination of screws and nails to tie everything together. Typically when framing, you would use nails to tie everything together, as they have a tendency to bend and not snap, unlike screws. I won't go into too much depth on why, but there's some very good videos out there. I then measured every 400mm and drew a line with an X next to it, showing me where to position my joists. Once I had all the joists cut to length, I would place them where they needed to go and then screw them or nail them. Once I finished the frame, I would square them up using my tape measure and measuring from end to end and making sure the number was the same. The timbers I had weren't long enough to make one whole frame for my workshop, so I decided to make two frames. One larger one at 3.6 meters by 3.8 meters and one smaller one at 1.7 meters by 3.8 meters. I would then tie them together with screws or bolts. On the smaller frame, I flipped it round and added a breathable membrane to stop any moisture from soaking the insulation. I tacked it in place using roof felt nails, as that's what I had, but usually you would use staples here. I've seen many videos recommending to put a damp-proof membrane here instead of a breathable membrane, as it does a greater job at stopping any moisture from going through. Usually you would use that for a concrete base, though I use this breathable membrane as that's what I had left. In preparation for the insulation, I attached some timber battens on the bottom side of the joists to hold the insulation in place. This is mostly the reason why I went with 120mm timbers, so that I could have 75mm insulation and 45mm batten. I then measured the width of the insulation and cut it with an old handsaw. I used PR insulation for the base, as that seems what most people use, and it's most resistant to water. For the bigger frame, as it was heavier and harder to turn it round for the breathable membrane, I wrapped the breathable membrane around the insulation and tacked it with some roof felt nails. I would then tap it down into place for a nice snug fit. I then used aluminium foil tape to cover up all the seams of the joists and the insulation. This tape basically makes it airtight and watertight. Then it was time for the OSB. I would get the help of my dad to lay down the OSB onto the workshop, and then I would cut it with my track saw and screw it into place. I used some mid-range screws from Builder Depot that were 4mm by 60mm, and I highly recommend them, as I used to use bigger screws and didn't work so well. I hope you enjoyed this video and it was of good help to you. If you want to watch the next part of this build series, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and see you next week.